Man, you know what's crazy? So, since we last talked about this, I received a message approximately like 2 days after I uploaded that part one of the subject, and it was a guy, right? And this guy is a gang stalker. He's an agent. I'm not quite sure who he is. He uses a fake name on his puppet Facebook, sock account Facebook profile, and he messaged me 2 days after I uploaded that video. Now, this guy hasn't messaged me since 2022. Okay, he hasn't said anything, and he messages me, and he says he's like, "I understand now, bro." He's like, "I understand now," and he sends a photo of a pro Shah protest in Auckland, right? And I was just talking shit about the Shah like 2 days prior in that part one of this video, and he's like, "I'll be going. Are you interested?" And he's like, "Happy holidays, take care," like all this shit. It's mocking. He's mocking, and it's directed conversation. If you've been following me for the last few months, you'll see that this is a thing they do now. I'll make a video about something, and then they'll like within 24 hours or so, they'll get someone to do directed conversation at me, where they bring up something that I just spoke about, and it's usually in a mocking way. Like with him, it's like he's asking me if I want to go to like a pro Shah demonstration rally or whatever in support of the Shah. That's how they mock you, right? Anyway, other than that, there's bigger fish to fry than these people's fucking little games, right? So since I last spoke about this, in part one I discussed how the fake deaths and all those people who they claimed were murdered and they actually were alive and well. That's actually happened again just today. Israeli Channel 12 did a report where they were talking about 4 Jews who were supposedly killed by the Islamic regime in Iran. And this one Israeli girl was sitting there watching the broadcast, and she saw the person on the TV that they claimed was killed in Iran, and it was her. And she like made a video of it. Like, I'll show you.
תקשיבו, אני לא צוחקת שזה משהו שלא חשבתי שהולך לקרות לי בחיים, סבבה? אני לא... היי, מה נשמע? מה קורה? אני בבית שלי, אוקיי? אני צריכה ללכת לאימון עוד חצי שעה, חבר'ה, מה קורה?
They're still, making up deaths. And, they're still lying. Obviously, it's all they ever do. The internet was turned off, I think, maybe like a day after I made that video. Part one. And, people were saying, oh, they've turned it off because they're about to massacre all the civilians and stuff. That was the narrative that people were saying. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, they're turning the internet off because foreign-backed agents are infiltrating their country and communicating with the assets on the ground. They got to cut the internet to stop the communications from happening. And within 48 hours of them like cutting off the internet, the riots and the insurrection basically stopped. Yeah. But they came out and now they're saying, yeah, like the Iranian regime's killed 80,000 people. That's the highest number I heard. Within 48 hours of the internet kill switch, Iran International, funded by Saudi Arabia and based in London, was claiming that the Iranian government had killed 12 to 18,000 people in 48 hours. And that they switched the internet off to stop people from knowing what they were going to do. First of all, switching the internet off to hide a massacre doesn't work because people can still film it. Even if they don't have internet, they can still film thousands of bodies in the streets and then upload it at a later date. And they were also saying that the Iranian government was gassing protesters. Like, if you fall for that, you're retarded. Iran is in the crosshairs of, like, the fucking satanic empire. Do you really believe that they would do something that stupid to bring that much heat on themselves? When they're being watched so closely, you really think they're gonna do that? Maybe you don't understand how, like, things work, but that's fiction. And yeah, the official death count numbers have come out, right? 2,400 civilians, 600 terrorists and insurrectionists, and 300 police and security officers. Okay. We don't know how many of those civilians were who they were killed by. People would say, "Oh, it's the regime." It was probably the terrorists, most of them. Did they shoot at some civilians? Yes, but you got to remember, these aren't really civilians. A lot of them, they were armed. They were, I showed in the last video, they were burning police officers to death. They killed 300 police. So, I mean, it's kind of like you shoot at police officers and you're out in the street with weapons and throwing fire bottles and shit at mosques. I think they set fire to like 150 mosques. But not one synagogue was touched. Okay. And out of all of the Muslim countries, the 54 Muslim countries or whatever, Iran has the second highest population of Jews. Second to Turkey. They have a lot of synagogues. Not one synagogue was touched. And, it's like I saw a little video from a morgue, right? And it was like, the bodies had been moved there and put there for identification and stuff by families. And people are like, "Oh my God, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, okay, so there's several dozen to low hundred number of bodies here. We don't know who these people are, and we don't know who shot these people. And people are sharing this video, and they're, look at this. It's like, yeah, we know people died. But you're claiming 80,000 people. Where is the 80,000? Where are you getting this number from? If the internet's already gone, it's cut out, where are you getting this number from? It's bullshit. And it's funny, actually, to hear these people, because in America, just yesterday, that guy protesting ICE, he didn't draw a gun on a cop. He didn't shoot a cop. He didn't set a cop on fire. No. He was filming the cop. He got slammed to the ground. One of the ICE agents, there was like 8 of them around him. One of the ICE agents took the gun out of his holster. He was concealed carrying, right? As he's allowed to, Second Amendment rights, right? One of the ICE agents takes the gun out. He's laying on the floor. Another ICE agent sees the gun, pulls his own gun out, fires 10 shots into this guy on the ground. If you clearly that's ridiculous, because, well, he didn't brandish his weapon at the officers, right? Let alone shoot them. He didn't, he wasn't like putting them in any danger, right? He was exercising his Second Amendment rights. And to hear these people like Trump and his supporters, who are so-called patriots, right? Patriots who love the Constitution and all that, they're fully going along with it. He shouldn't have put himself in that situation. ICE is doing a great job. Can you believe this? These people are supposed to be patriots. This guy was not going to shoot. He was a nurse. He was not going to fucking pull his gun out on a ICE agent. And to hear Trump and all this so-called like right-wing patriots coming out in support of this, it's a slippery slope, man. It's a slippery slope. This is why I wish Bill Cooper was still alive. Bill Cooper knew the Constitution inside and out. He would have been roasting these people, right? And you can bet if Biden was still the president, and an ICE agent like shot an American citizen who was legally carrying a concealed weapon on his full constitutional rights, Can you imagine if Biden was the president? All these Trump supporters and Trump would come out, oh, look what they're doing to the Constitution. Man was, exercising his Second Amendment rights and was killed for it. But when it's Trump and it's everything's okay. And that's how you know that these people are still in that trap of left and right. They're completely unilluminated and asleep. They can't think. They just pick sides. They want their side to win. That's it. They don't have any logical thought process. I saw one Trump supporter who is pro-ICE, who actually came out and said, like, I'm pro-ICE and whatnot, but that was murder. That was straight up unnecessary. I only saw one. Most of them are just like, well, he shouldn't have put himself in that situation. He shouldn't have put himself in that situation. One American friend of mine, that's what he said. He said, ICE is doing a great job and they shouldn't have put themselves in that situation. Meaning he deserved to get shot. Fuck him. And the same guy, this guy I know, he's from Cali. He said, he's saying like, that they need to go and, bomb Iran because they're shooting at, these people, protesters. Is there any, like, cohesion in his thought process? No. Of course not. How can you be in support of ICE shooting that guy who didn't even brandish his weapon? He was just exercising his Second Amendment rights and right to protest and stuff like that. But when 300 police officers are murdered in Iran, you think that that's evil if the police shoot back at these terrorists and insurrectionists. That's room temperature IQ stuff. And, there was actually an Israeli journalist who came out like a week ago who works for like Channel 13 or Channel 12 or whatever it is. And he's like, tonight on, we talked about the weapons that were used to kill the police officers of the regime in Iran. And that these weapons came from a foreign nation. And he said, you can guess what that foreign nation is. Clearly, he's talking about his own country. He's talking about Israel. That's where the weapons came from. The weapons that killed 300 Iranian police officers and security agents. And, some of the Zionist Israelis in the comments were pissed off that he said that. One guy was like, yeah, it's we know, but now you've said it out loud. And, yeah. Man, I'm not even Muslim. Let alone Shia Muslim. I'm not even Muslim. But I'm 100% behind the Islamic Republic. 100%. Because they are the last country. One of the last countries that are actually standing up against the satanic empire. Right? They have a day called Quds Day. Right? Quds means Jerusalem. It's a thing they do every year where they go out and they do these rallies in support of the Palestinians, right? And one thing they do, you guys will find this interesting. You know the obelisk, right? The obelisk, that like symbol of, penis of Osiris. They burn those things. They'll make them out of like paper and certain materials. And they do this on Quds Day, and they'll put like the flag of Israel. They'll put like the square and compass of Freemasonry and all this stuff on it. The all-seeing eye, and they'll set fire to the obelisk. And it's like they really are the last country that's standing up against what's going on. And you don't have to be Muslim to support them. It's like I'm not even Muslim. And I don't love or hate them, really. I just go with what the truth is. And the truth is they're being lied about a lot. They're having their name dragged through the mud a lot. And when Jacob Rothschild's son himself comes out and wants Trump to, send the supreme leader to Russia, like, make him exile. When a Rothschild is in favor of something, I'm automatically against it. And it's pretty fucking obvious at this point who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, right? And I don't want to hear this brainwashed, and most of the people who are helping this, Iran war take place are Iranians themselves. That's the most fucked up part. And many of them are Jews, although not all of them are. But to see Iranians in this, they're very emotional. Like I've noticed this. They don't think with their head. They think with their heart. And they hear these numbers, 80,000 and 40,000 and all this stuff, and they just fall for it. Because there's two types of thinking, right? You can think with your brain, which is logic, or you can think with your heart, which is emotion. And the more susceptible you are to thinking with your heart, your emotions, instead of your logic, the more susceptible you are to fall for propaganda. Because when they say, 80,000 dead, and then they show you a morgue with, a few dozen bodies in there, what you should be asking yourself is, well, there's maybe like 100 bodies in there, 200 max. They're saying 80,000. I'm seeing a couple hundred. The government's saying, 3,000. What's the truth? Think with your head. Okay? Think with your head. Don't think with your emotions. When you see something and you hear something, the first thing you do is you look at it and you think to yourself, is this designed to grab my emotions and manipulate me? Is this emotional manipulation? When you hear about these huge numbers of people killed and you see all this stuff, you don't have to like the Islamic Republic, right? You don't have to like them. But if you lie and you try to embellish things because you want, to dress like a whore, like in Tehran, once again, you need to actually be honest. You can't lie because it's so easy to discover when someone's lying, and it ruins your credibility. One of the main reasons, and I'm diaspora. I grew up in the West, essentially, and most of what I hear from people in my family and family friends and stuff is that the Islamic Republic's so bad, right? They're so evil and they're so bad, but these are the same people who fall for all the other tricks, right? But growing up, I thought like, oh yeah, and then I would see photos from before 79, and I'd be like, wow, look at that. Look how amazing it looks, right? And, you can see photos from it there now in 2025, 26, and it looks fine. It looks nice. But anyway, I fell for the propaganda. But the thing that turned me into supporting the Islamic Republic even more, despite the fact I'm not Muslim, is because of the lies that the people who hate the Islamic Republic would spread. That's what made me actually side with them more. So if you think that all your lying and all your bullshit is helping your cause, it's actually doing the opposite. Because people see through your lies, and then they go and they look in the opposite direction to see if those people are telling the truth. And I'm not saying they tell the truth all the time, but overall, they're much more honest and have much more integrity than you guys. It's like with the first Supreme Leader, Khomeini, not Khamenei. Khamenei is the current Supreme Leader. They have very similar names. The first Supreme Leader was Khomeini. Khomeini, he was the first leader, right? You know where he lived? Like, when he was the Supreme Leader? He lived in, like, a little tiny flat. Like, a little tiny apartment with his wife. He didn't live in some, like, crazy... Like, what world leader can you say did that, apart from that president of Uruguay? It's like, that's something you have to respect, He's not living in some, like, ivory tower or Trump Tower or something. Like, he's just living in, like, a flat. The Supreme Leader, like, You know, and I'd hear people say, "Oh, they're actually secretly rich and this and the." Who the fuck cares? Who cares if someone's rich? Good for them. You can't take the money with you when you die, whatever. But my point is, I never knew that Khomeini lived in like a little flat until he died while he was a supreme leader. That's crazy. You know? They have much more integrity. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they have much more integrity than a lot of these leaders that you see who are really just puppets. You know what I mean? Again, I don't love or hate them, but they seem to be on the right side, especially when the people who are trying to destroy them are constantly lying and funneling weapons to people on the ground, young, impressionable people who watch too much, mainstream American media. Right? I think a lot of these young Iranis, they watch like American media and they have this idea that America is some like really nice place to be or something. They don't see the real reality of it. And they're just brainwashed. I think it's mostly young people. And I'm young, but, I've been researching this stuff for a long time and I can see through it. The manipulation and the sales pitch, make Iran great. That shit doesn't work on me, right? It does not work. So, but it works on a lot of young, impressionable Iranians, and I think that's why a lot of these people, they want something to happen. They want America and Israel to bomb their own country, and they're like basically begging for it. It's insane. And again, a lot of these, if you see some of these Iranians, Persians, and stuff, a lot of them are Zionists or Jews, because there are Persian Jews. And yeah, there are Persian Jews who still stay in Iran. Again, like out of all the 50-something Muslim countries, Iran has the second highest population of Jews. People say, oh, they want to kill all the Jews and stuff. Well, seems to be like, dozens, if not hundreds of synagogues in Iran. Tens of thousands of Jews. What are you talking about? What killing Jews? What do you mean? How is there synagogues and shit if they're so anti-Jew? They're anti-Zionist. They're anti-Israel. Modern state of Israel. Okay. And wouldn't you be too if they were assassinating your top scientists and military people? It's not the fact that they're Jews. It's the fact that they're fucking rabid. Right? It has nothing to do with whether they're Jews. They could be Buddhists. If it was a Buddhist state of Israel, right? Are they anti-Buddhist now? Because they respond when the Buddhists go in and kill their military and nuclear scientists? Like, come on, man. This stuff doesn't work anymore. And again, there's one more thing. These monarchists, these pro-Shah people, they've actually created a new website where they will dox people who come out speaking in support of the Islamic Republic, and they'll put their photograph, their name, their location, their occupation, and it's basically like a kill list. Because I've seen these people on Twitter and other places saying, these monarchists, and they're like, once we take the country back and Reza Pahlavi is the king, once our Shah is back, we're going to be dealing with all you people. It's like, yeah. Yeah. Okay. These people who talk about democracy and shit, and these people who talk about the Islamic Republic as a dictatorship, they talk about it being a dictatorship and how it needs to change, but they want a king, they want a monarch. That's a dictatorship, you moron. You're just swapping one for another. And dictatorships aren't necessarily bad. Look at the leader of Singapore for 40 years. I forget his name. He turned Singapore into a powerhouse. Right? If the dictator is good, what's wrong with that? Oh, but there's no elections. Well, there are actually elections for the president of Iran. But if you're in the US and you're talking about elections, you guys don't have democratic elections because you're not a democracy. You're a constitutional republic. The popular vote that American citizens make It doesn't determine the president. People don't know this. It's very simple. The founding fathers knew that they didn't want the masses of people, the stupid masses, right? A lot of the founding fathers were Freemasons. They knew a lot about the masses, right? They didn't want the herd, the stupid herd, to be able to choose who's leading the country. So they set up something called the Electoral College. And there's 500 odd electors who choose the president, not the citizens. The only deciding factor in who becomes the president in the United States is up to about 500 people. Right? That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The popular vote in America doesn't do anything. It's just a poll. It's just a popular vote. They just, it doesn't count. It's the electoral college that decides. So if you want to talk about, democracy, and Iran needs democracy, start with your country. Because your country isn't supposed to be a democracy. And if you want to go around changing other countries' government systems, start with yours. Okay. I'm out.